Good evening. This is the CBS Evening News. Dan Rather reporting. Israeli soldiers are reported tonight to be within sight of Beirut, only 4 miles south of the Lebanese capital. Israel is warning it won't be long before its soldiers are in the city's streets, even though U.S. intelligence sources continue to insist that Israel will not actually enter the city. The PLO is promising to fight from room to room. Only a dozen miles to the east of Beirut, Israelis and Syrians fought for control of an important intersection of an important highway, the one that leads to Damascus. 25 miles southeast of Beirut, in the Bekaa Valley, Israel reports heavy tank battles and more crushing losses for the Syrian Air Force. President Reagan sent Israel a firmly worded message to turn its troops around and march them out of Lebanon. But Israel seems more concerned with consolidating its hold on captured PLO bases behind Israeli lines, especially the ancient biblical city of Sidon. We have 3 reports from the war zones.
Israeli jets struck close to Beirut's international airport today, destroying Palestinian ammunition and supply depots. Guerrilla strongholds on the coast were also bombed. But along with the bombs fell a new and ominous sign. Leaflets warning residents of Beirut that Israeli forces would soon storm the Lebanese capital. Syrian troops were told in the same message to leave the city within a few hours. Possible escape routes were printed on the back. The PLO urged residents to ignore the leaflets, saying they were contaminated and should not be touched. The streets of Beirut emptied as people sought refuge in their homes, some peering from balconies and rooftops at the frightening spectacle taking place. For it was just a few minutes after the leaflets had been dropped that Israeli warplanes came back, hitting guerrilla camps within the city itself, setting off confusion and still more panic. At least 3 Palestinian refugee camps were bombed, along with buildings near the headquarters of PLO chief Yasser Arafat. The Israelis are now on Beirut's doorstep. The pathway in is clear. Don Cladstrip, CBS News, Beirut.
Syria didn't back down today, and neither did Israel. Again, there was savage artillery fire in the Bekaa Valley. There were also tank battles throughout the day, and in the mountainous terrain, Palestinian landmines claimed new victims. Overhead, the toll also climbed. Israel says it brought down another 23 Syrian jets today and 3 more helicopters. In an urgent message sent to Prime Minister Begin, President Reagan said all this must stop now and that Israel must withdraw. The mood of Mr. Begin's government is to consider the first request, not the second. The government here feels it was burned by the last American diplomatic solution in Lebanon and is not about to let that happen again. But since it has achieved its original military objective and can't afford to occupy Lebanon indefinitely, it has good reason to accept a ceasefire and then use the Lebanese territory it now controls as a trump card in later negotiations on the status of the PLO. Their status was reflected in the faces of some Palestinians already captured by the Israelis. 1,800 prisoners, according to some foreign sources, now humiliated by having to rely on the generosity of their captors. And devastation also stalked communities caught between the armies. Reconstruction will take months and cost millions. Entire, stunned residents who began digging out could do little more than survey the rubble. Their despair in sharp contrast to the jubilation of those who are winning and whose chief spokesman said tonight that for all intents and purposes, the PLO has been paralyzed and neutralized as an armed organization. Bob Fall, CBS News, Jerusalem.
Israeli troops combed Sidon from house to house. Palestinian guerrillas are known to be still operating. Their snipers shot and killed 2 Israelis here before dawn. The PLO has lost many more, but its commandos are dug in behind well-fortified positions in a sprawling refugee camp on the edge of town. So the bullhorns warned the camp's civilians today to leave and seek refuge near the sea. An Israeli attack was imminent. It began from the air. Precision bombing within a quarter mile of Israeli positions was followed by a carefully conducted ground assault to test the camp's defenses. Among the civilians who walked out to Israeli lines were some who became prisoners, young men to be interrogated about any associations with the PLO. The Israelis believe there are still several thousand Palestinian commandos hiding out inside the city of Sidon and its environs, and commanders here are convinced that many of them will have spent today in relative safety among the civilians on the beach. It is a question of positive identification, of simply knowing who is who. One of the biggest problems now for this army on the move is what to do with those who live behind its front line. How many people were wounded in the battle for this city?
A lot. So you cannot count. The day before yesterday, I was in one hospital. Hundreds of patients came, and we are just helpless. We could not do anything.
Sidon is without electricity and water. Many do not have the food and medicines they require, and many more are suffering from what has been a terrifying battle. The Israelis have captured Sidon, but they concede they cannot run it as long as the guerrillas can take advantage of the night. Doug Tennell, CBS News, Sidon.
Iran today rejected Iraq's offer of a ceasefire in their war, but Iraq said it would observe one anyway. When the Iraqi offer was announced last night in Baghdad, President Saddam Hussein was not mentioned. This, as well as Iran's demands that Saddam Hussein be ousted, led to Iraqi radio reports that he had indeed been overthrown. But today's Iraq official news agency reported that Saddam Hussein remains in control.
Now pull that loop through that loop.
Yep.
Pull them tight.
Hey, look.
You did it.
One milestone coming up.
There she is, Doctor of Shoelaces.
Let's see.
Polaroid's pictures are little celebrations of life. It's fun to see yourself while you're just being yourself. You miss that with pictures you have to get developed.
Want me to do it again?
Every morning.
Great day to shoot a pack.
The Sears National Sporting Goods Sale is happening now. Save on a variety of items, many are best sellers, like our best-selling 10-speed racer and touring bikes at a swift $30 savings. Or our most popular 8x10-foot family-size tent, save $40. And this full-size sleeping bag, now half price. And save $20 on Sears Chrome Weight Bench and 177-pound weight set. The Sears National Sporting Goods Sale, another great event that shows you can count on Sears.
President Reagan's day at the NATO summit in Bonn required a sharp lurch away from NATO concerns. As Leslie Stahl reports tonight, Mr. Reagan's time and energy went a lot more to the warfare in the Middle East than to trying to keep the peace in Europe.
President Reagan, once again finding it impossible to control the Israelis, is once again trying to minimize the damage to U.S. foreign policy. He agreed to a meeting with the foreign minister of Saudi Arabia, Prince Saud, who flew to Bonn shortly after his government pledged to back the PLO with military and diplomatic resources.
What we are expecting from the United States is a clear sign of its position as regards this unprovoked and premeditated aggression on the part of Israel.
Do you consider an oil cutoff? Is that a possibility?
I will not predict anything else.
Mr. Reagan also answered a personal message from Soviet President Brezhnev, who complained that his clients, the Syrians, were being attacked. President Reagan responded that he, too, was concerned about the fighting. And U.S. officials here now say this is unlikely to escalate into a superpower crisis. To build pressure on Israel, the president sent an urgent message to Prime Minister Begin asking for an immediate withdrawal. The message was ignored. Secretary of State Haig wanted to start some shuttle diplomacy by accepting Israel's invitation to come to Jerusalem today, but White House officials overruled him.
I think I would say that the discussions we've had with the Israelis today have not evidenced sufficient flexibility to make a visit worthwhile at this time.
Despite that, the administration is still stressing that Israel has legitimate grievances. Counselor Edwin Mee says the U.S. isn't issuing demands or threats, but firm persuasiveness. and he says the administration has decided that Israel's invasion was defensive enough in nature that the U.S. will not employ the persuasiveness of cutting off F-16 shipments or other arms as it did a year ago.
Moreover, during the NATO meeting, the U.S. blocked a move to issue a strong statement condemning Israel. All this totally upstaged the NATO meeting, which was called in order to reaffirm the unity of the alliance. But Trudeau of Canada condemned the meeting as a waste of time. U.S. officials weren't happy either. They were hoping President Reagan would emerge as the leader, but instead he finds himself embarrassed again by his inability to control an ally involved in an unwanted war. Leslie Stahl, CBS News, Bonn.
On at least one important piece of business at the Bonn summit, Mr. Reagan failed to score with the NATO allies. Mr. Reagan wanted them to shoulder more of the burden of defending Europe, a request they quietly but firmly turned down. Inside the NATO summit, an attempt to highlight the unity of the alliance. Outside, some 350,000 people trying to present a massive display of unity, too, against nuclear weapons. The only act of violence was self-inflicted. Some in the crowd rushing to help a 36-year-old man who first set fire to himself and when the fire was put out, then tried to kill himself with a knife. Otherwise, the Bonn protest was peaceful. Today's massive West German demonstration is the subject of Bill Moyer's commentary.
At first glance, you might think much of Bonn had turned out today in an orgy of anti-Americanism. There were communist sympathizers scattered throughout the crowd, and German radicals incorrigibly opposed to American influence in their country's affairs. Someone burned an American flag. President Reagan was condemned as a quick-shooting cowboy riding roughshod over peace. Pamphlets and signs deplored NATO's decision to deploy new missiles in Europe. Actually, these people came from all over Germany, and extremists were a minority in a gathering with as many shades as Joseph's coat. Protesters ranged from youthful idealists to budding nationalists, to pious Christians and environmentalists calling for a clean, green earth. You found little sentiment for appeasement. Most are asking both superpowers to temper their rivalry and reduce their arms. It was not hatred of America that brought them out, but hope. Hope that the specter of nuclear war can be banished from Earth. As the protesters lofted their messages for peace, many Germans were going to church. This was a holiday, as Catholics celebrated the feast of Corpus Christi. Far more people worshiped today than took part in any demonstrations. They will tell you they're no less concerned for peace, but that it will come only if the West sticks together. According to the polls, 80% of all Germans still favor a close alliance of Atlantic nations. A majority considers America to be West Germany's best friend. So the protesters who came to Bonn today and who will be in Berlin tomorrow represent a fraction of the German people, and the militants who take a perverse view of America, a smaller fraction yet. Those militants will be out in force tomorrow when President Reagan visits West Berlin. The communist government of East Germany is expected to allow troublemakers to cross the wall dividing that city and help the extremists foment disorder. Such is the paradox that dissent tolerated by a free society is exploited by those who deny it themselves. That's the communist version of a peace movement. You would like to press the paradox upon that generation coming of age in Europe and America with only second-hand recollections of World War II and a vague perception of what happens to the human mind in a monopoly of the state. I'm Bill Moyers in Bonn.
The Feast of Corpus Christi today drew large crowds into the streets of Warsaw, and for some in the crowd, the occasion quickly turned from pastoral to political. There were signs of passive resistance to the regime all around. Solidarity signs in print, V signs flashed on the fingers of the people. Some put their protest to music, changing a word of a patriotic song to say, "We will defend to the last drop of blood the spirit of the nation until the Soviet tempest turns to dust."
Why is our copier smarter than theirs? Compare the Savin 883 on my left with the Xerox 4000 on my right. You'll find that only one has a microprocessor and an electronic brain that can transform an unclear original into a clear copy. Only one has a fully automatic document feed, and only one has an energy-saving automatic shutoff. On all these points, one copier outsmarts the other. 7.
Michelle Lee, you have a terrific smile. How do you do it?
I fight back. I fight plaque.
Plaque?
With new formula Pepsodent. It has a plaque-fighting formula.
But what's plaque?
Plaque is that awful film that collects on teeth, turning them dull and dingy.
Ooh.
But Pepsodent gets my teeth their whitest and keeps them that way.
I can see that.
How about you?
Me?
Want to get your teeth their whitest?
Well, sure.
Then fight back. Fight plaque with new formula Pepsodent. You're gonna love it.
The Commerce Department's chief economist, Robert Ortner, is fond of saying that it's going to have to be the consumer who pulls us out of this recession. Today, after announcing retail sales for last month, Ortner said that maybe the consumers are beginning to do their thing. Retail sales rose 1.5% in May, the second biggest jump in a year and a half. House and Senate conferees today agreed on a compromise plan to help the housing industry. The cost, $3 billion. The object? To make housing more affordable with mortgage subsidies and put construction workers back on the job. But while House-Senate conferees have agreed and Congress is likely to pass this measure, President Reagan calls it a costly bailout and one that he may very well veto. The House today did something that some were wondering whether it would ever do. It voted yes on a fiscal 1983 federal budget. Susan Spencer reports it was a Republican plan, one that President Reagan says he can live with. One that Democrats charge would make living a lot tougher for a lot of other people.
Passage of the Republican bill came after the House had rejected a total of 9 others, and the aye vote for some was more out of frustration than conviction.
Either we do it right this time, or else history and the American people will never and should never forgive us.
The GOP package won in large part because it projects a deficit below the magic $100 billion mark, 99.2. But to get there, it goes deeply into programs for the poor, cutting at least $1 billion each from Medicaid, food stamps, and public assistance. Defense is trimmed too, more than $7 billion below the president's request. Taxes would go up $20 billion next year. On the floor, the Democrats charge that once again, the poor were being abandoned at the expense of the military.
The latter proposal is absolutely vicious in terms of its effect on the poor. It makes a mockery of equity. It makes a mockery of the word decency.
But Republicans insisted their cuts were responsible.
What we're trying to do is to get a hold of some spending by this government that's out of control.
Passage of the budget got a round of applause as 46 Democrats voted with the Republicans, some saying later they were frankly just as happy to lose, since they think this budget, with its big cuts in social programs, will give them an excellent campaign issue this fall. Susan Spencer, CBS News, Capitol Hill.
The House version of the budget must still be reconciled with one already adopted by the Senate and which calls for a bigger deficit. The Social Security Administration said today it plans to get a lot more aggressive about collecting about $2 billion in overpayments to recipients. An agency official said Social Security plans to test the use of private debt collection services to get its money back. The official said the pilot program would not be used to terrorize the elderly, but rather to go after hardcore cases. A New Jersey judge today acquitted Nancy Kissinger of charges that she assaulted a woman who made vile insinuations about her husband, Henry. The incident occurred last February at Newark Airport. The former Secretary of State accompanied his wife for her day in Newark Municipal Court. Mrs. Kissinger admitted that she pinched the woman who made the remark, but the judge called that a spontaneous, somewhat human reaction and dismissed the charges.
What happened there? I better get there and help.
Look, the car's on fire.
We gotta move them.
Easy, lady. Don't move. Relax. Just relax.
Could you move an accident victim without making the injuries worse? Watch closely. It's best to drag the victim as she lies, either by the shoulders, with your forearms supporting her head, or by the ankles. Learn more ways you can help in the First Aid on the Road book, free from participating Shell dealers. Come to Shell for answers.
Babe, a little one-on-one. I had to do some yard work. Want to Michelob Light? I don't have to do any yard work.
Would good friends really go at it this hard just for a beer? Well, consider it's Michelob Light, and that means a rich, smooth taste you can compare to any beer you like.
102 to 98. How did you do it?
Defense?
Michelob Light. Compare the taste.
Pope John Paul II left Rome this evening on a 14,000-mile round-trip journey to spend barely one full day in Argentina. The Pope's trip was hastily arranged as a counterbalance to his trip last week to Britain, Argentina's enemy in the Falklands. Vatican officials say John Paul intends to do the same thing in Argentina that he did in Britain: pray for peace and for the dead and wounded of both sides. In Argentina, the government marked National Sovereignty Day by vowing to hold the Falklands at all costs. Britain admitted serious losses from an Argentine air attack 2 days ago. One British official said that after these losses, further negotiations with Argentina would be, quote, unthinkable. Another official, Tom Fenton reports, says the setback won't hold up Britain's final attack on Stanley.
Although the House of Commons was abuzz with rumors of massive British casualties, Defense Minister John Nutt refused to divulge the full extent of British losses in Tuesday's air attacks on the British fleet.
I am not prepared at this stage to give the total numbers of our casualties, and indeed to do so could be of assistance to the enemy and put our own men at greater risk.
For 2 days, the British had been secretly ferrying troops under cover of clouds to a new beachhead at Fitzroy. They were discovered and attacked by Argentine planes before anti-aircraft defenses could be set up. The landing ship Sir Tristram had already been unloaded when it was set afire by bombs, but its sister ship Sir Galahad still had supplies, ammunition, and hundreds of men on board. It was severely damaged and exploded with heavy casualties. The Argentine Air Force remains a potent threat, even though the British claim to have destroyed 10 Argentine planes for every British plane shot down. Tuesday's attack was almost a replay of the massive air assault at Port San Carlos 3 weeks ago. A British Navy gunner, using a shipboard fire control tracker, recorded the action as Argentine fighter bombers came roaring down Falkland Sound in repeated waves of near-suicidal attacks. San Carlos beachhead became Bomb Alley. The frigate Ardent was hit 15 times and fatally damaged. 22 sailors died, 30 were injured, 178 were rescued. The Argentine planes attacked bravely and relentlessly, but at a heavy cost. The slower but highly maneuverable British Harrier jets proved they were more than a match for Argentina's high-performance Mirage fighter bombers. Tom Fenton, CBS News, London.
14 Americans formerly held hostage in Iran signed a letter of protest today against the U.S. government. They said our government was putting price over principle by purchasing cut-rate oil from Iran.
Sounds like a hit, Laura.
Thanks.
How about some coffee?
Great. Whoa.
Only half a cup? I thought you loved fresh brewed coffee.
Love the rich taste. It's the caffeine I can do without.
Me too. That's why we're drinking Brim decaffeinated coffee.
This is Brim?
This is Brim ground. And it's decaffeinated so you don't have to stop at half a cup.
If it tastes this rich, I don't want to stop. Fill it to the rim.
With Brim?
Fill your cup to the rim with the richness of Brim.
Professor, what's that cereal you're enjoying?
Ah, yes, the dates, the raisins, the walnuts, fruit, and... it escapes me.
New Post Fruit and Fiber cereal. It tastes so good, you forget the fiber.
The name, good question. It contains delicious fruit. It's fruit and... I forget.
New Fruit and Fiber tastes so good, you forget the fiber.
It's fruit and... fruit.
New Fruit and Fiber, also with apples and cinnamon. It tastes so good, you forget the fiber.
Charles Kuralt is on the road tonight. Actually, he's on the banks of a river in Philadelphia. His story brings to mind that old song about rowing one's boat gently and merrily down the stream. The one that says, life is but a dream.
It is a dreamlike thing to stand on the bank and watch. The young men leaning back on their oars, their boats like needles piercing the bright reflections. Sculling on the Schuylkill goes way back into the last century, and I don't know of a prettier municipal sight than this one, the young men at their oars. Just one thing. Do you see that 8-man sweep? The accumulated rowing experience in that boat does not equal the experience in this one. This one is the boat of Harold Finnegan.
It teaches determination. With determination, you can go to the moon, you can do what you want.
He was a young man when he started. He just never stopped. he had careers as a baker and a furniture dealer, but from the day in 1929 when he first dipped an oar into the Schuylkill, this has been his real career. He is 72. He is out here with the young men pretty nearly every day.
There's a peace out here. There's a peace and quiet. In the fall, we find the fog rising like myriads of little soldiers on the water. We come to the freezing and the icicles hanging down from the bridges. And you see the trees bare and gradually gain their leaves. The flowers come, go.
He has watched the flowers come and go for 53 years on the river. But do not think Harold Finnegan does this for the poetry of it. He does it to win races. He has won club races, city races, or national races every single year of those 53 years. And last year, with USA printed on his T-shirt below the emblem of his beloved Malta Boat Club, he went to Heidelberg and won the World Seniors Championship. Do you expect to race this year?
Yes, sir, I do.
Do you expect to win?
Why, certainly.
Can you still take on an 18 or 20-year-old and win?
Oh, certainly. Oh, yes, I must be able to do that. That's no great problem.
Harold Finnegan's pleasure, in fact, is to row alongside an 8-man crew of straining teenagers and, matching them stroke for stroke, start a little conversation. They can never answer, he says. They're always out of breath. They call the Schuylkill River Boat Clubs with their proud old names the Schuylkill Navy. If this is a navy, Harold Finnegan is Admiral of the Fleet. I'm not very good at figures, so I just brought along a little calculator. If Mr. Finnegan rows 8 miles a day, which he does conservatively 275 days of the year, that's 2,200 miles every year. He's been at it for 53 years, remember, total of 116,600 miles, which we'll just divide by 24,900 miles, the circumference of the Earth. Harold Finnegan has rowed around the world 4.6827309 times. He's out there now, going for 5. Charles Carroll, CBS News, on the road in Philadelphia.
And in Finnegan's wake, that's the CBS Evening News for this Thursday. Dan Rather reporting from New York. Thank you for joining us. Good night.
There's your refund. But sometimes you need more than a traveler's check refund. You say you also would like us to help cancel your lost credit cards.
Yeah.
And you'd like a temporary ID.
Right.
And you'd like us to cash a personal check for $200?
Oh, exactly.
Really?
If you want the only traveler's check with 5 services to help protect your vacation, American Express is worth asking for by name.
We should have asked for American Express.
Comfortable? Good.
That was comfortable.
I've been giving my daughter tips on driving. And here's another important one. If you drive a car, you need premium performance tires. So I put Bridgestone Superfiller radios on Leslie's car. The hard rubber Superfiller here lets the sidewall flex. So you get a big footprint of rubber for cornering, braking, paneling, and comfort too.
They're comfortable, Pop, and they're performers.
That's right. You can feel it when you drive. Bridgestone Superfiller steel belted radios. See the yellow pages for a Bridgestone dealer near you.
I'm Bill Curtis in West Germany. We'll have coverage of President Reagan's visit to the Berlin Wall, and Diane Sawyer reports with the latest on the Middle East tomorrow on the CBS Morning News.
This is CBS.
A task force from Washington came to Nashville today to look into some of the problems at Meharry Medical College. We'll have that story next on Eyewitness News.
Recently, in blind taste tests held in malls across the nation, Diet Cola drinkers tested the 3 leading Diet Colas. Diet Pepsi didn't win. Tab didn't win. Diet Right Cola did win. In fact, more people preferred the taste of Diet Right than either of the others. Taste the one that won. Delicious Diet Right Cola.